You're listening to the Be Better Off Show by Kelly Partners.
Good morning and welcome to the Be Better Off Show, where we get leading Australians of great achievement and interest to speak with us and share how we can all be healthier, wealthier and wiser. Now today, Julian Parisi works with his father, who's a great rooster running Parisi, and they do amazing things. So welcome, Julian. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here speaking with such a superstar like yourself, man.
Hey, champion. Now tell me, where does the name Parisi for this company of yours come from?
So the company name is via our surname.
Oh.
And we thought that we would, use our history, our family name as our brand name. It's been since 54, so many years.
That's fantastic. So coming up to running a business for over 60 years, and you've got your dad, Chris, in it. Was it your father's father that started the business?
Yeah, correct. So my family were originally retailers in the inner west of Sydney, many years ago, and initially my grandfather progressed on to my father and his two brothers getting involved, where they moved the retail side of the business over to the eastern suburbs, the Rose Bay.
Yeah.
They then expanded from a smaller site into a larger site in Rose Bay, in just off Newsouth Head Road. It's called Dover Road. And then from that point, actually 11 years ago, they had moved on and retired, and we'll get to that point. But then, my father and I had progressed and reignited the brand name fresh again with a total from a different dimension, basically addressing where we felt there was a gap in the fresh produce industry.
So what was that gap, Julian, and how did you were working at that time, I think, in banking, is that right?
Yeah, correct. So I was at Goldman Sachs JB Were, as a young analyst, very keen to sort of make a mark on the world, of course, like many young migrant kids. Studied, worked hard for uni, then was lucky enough to earn a spot at Goldman's, and from there learned so much over 6 years and was placed in different areas. A dominant part of my time started in futures, on the futures desk, and literally writing down settlement trades, and worked through into private wealth, and spent a lot of time actually on the strategic financial management side, so structuring and on the tax side actually. Yeah, and then from there was an opportunity. So the gap, to answer your question, there was an opportunity that arose with Crown in Melbourne.
Yeah.
They had issues with sourcing good quality produce. We were approached. So at that time, my father was approached to see how he could tackle that. And that was jointly with another successful family who were more serving Woolworths and Coles at the time, the Moratis family. Might be familiar with them.
Yeah.
And collectively, the two families joined together and started servicing Crown in Melbourne. From that point, we then secured site in Sydney Fish Market, which we still operate today. And the family they had redeveloped the site in Rose Bay, leased out to Chemist Warehouse, and then rebuilt Parisi Food Hall, which is currently being operated by another party, but under our name. So the family still, got the building and the property, the land rights to those sites, but no longer operating that store in Rose Bay. Coming back to the hole that we saw, so off the back of Crown not being able to secure great produce and the service component to go with it, we then set aside in Sydney and said, well, if there's an issue in Melbourne, there must be also an issue here in Sydney, So we ventured out, and from a long-standing relationship with the Hems family, we reached out to them, and they were also having some issues with produce. They gave us 10% of their business within 6 weeks. We were doing 50% within 6 months. We were doing 85-90% of their business. Still today, we still do around those numbers. Added to that client base from a wholesale point of view is, we do Think Group, which is, arguably they've got some of the best chefs in the country. We do. We had worked very closely with Rockpool Group, with Neil Perry's restaurants, of which very exciting. He's opening Margaret very soon.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It is fantastic. You know, and we do great restaurants like, you know, Catalina and so Continental Deli CBD guys who are doing things very different. Sammy Junior, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them from the bar industry. They're doing
Yeah.
things.
What do you do with people? I just heard of these Sammy Junior guys. Their Instagram looks amazing. I haven't been down there, but I met the guy the other day. I think they're running the bar that's in the new Adena in the city.
And you're all over it.
Yeah, I met the guy there. They're about to open. Lovely guy. And what do you do with the bars?
You probably met with Vince, maybe Vinny, or one of the Italian guys, maybe background Italian.
Yeah, they're literally just setting up the bar up in the restaurant, up in the top. There's a piano bar one side, bar restaurant the other. And as I'm inclined to do, I said, "Hey mate, what are you doing? This looks." He had some very interesting Averna and things, you know, Sicilian aperitivo on the bar, and I was like, "Okay, this is not what you normally see. What are you guys up to?" And then he started telling me, and I was looking on my Instagram with him. Very, very interesting. So are you guys doing liquor, or are you doing the food in there, or?
Yeah. So we identified that off the back of serving restaurants, there was a dominant bar focus, which bars who are serving good quality cocktails.
It's serving really high quality little nibbles and things, yeah?
Absolutely. And what goes with those cocktails is there is a need for fresh pressed juices on a daily basis. So I'm talking about like when you go and have a drink at maybe Sammy or Hemisphere, you know, or Four Pillars Distillery have got a great one that they're operating as well in the West. So they're requiring product which they need it to be super fresh. For example, pure ginger juice. So they turn that in for a penicillin. They'll turn that into a honey ginger syrup, of which they need that for their penicillin. So there's so many different products that they need in juicing, like yuzu. We're doing fresh yuzu, you know, so that can be with a gin.
Yeah. Okay. And then are you doing like a lot of them are serving sort of some pecorino cheese and some breadsticks and this sort of stuff with their cocktails? Are you guys providing that sort of thing?
Not along the cheeses, but things like dry muscatels are a big one for them. We're handling now and we started doing 10 and 20 flowers a day. Now we do 2,000 to 3,000 flowers.
So what's that about? What is this putting flour on my food business? I'm like, do I eat it? Do I admire it?
Well, I think that it's meant to be a bit of an edible garnish. So, you know, for we all know that Instagram, you mentioned, is a big part of people's lives these days, and anything that is Instagrammable is creating attention, it's creating hype, and that's part of that focus, you know. And clearly, by the volumes of late, those numbers are
really interesting. Yeah. Let me ask you. You know, I think it's multi-generational businesses are really interesting, and you know, your dad, who I know is, you know, small personality, not very driven type of guy, so easy to work with, no doubt. That's a joke, so it's an in-joke for our listeners. But Julian's dad, Chris, a wonderful guy, very driven, smart, big personality, great guy. But Julian, in coming into a business with your dad and combining forces with a young bull, old herbal type of scenario, how did you get your heads together? And you have worked very successfully together. You know, how do you do that?
Yeah. Look, I think that's a great question, because I know so many similar family scenarios where the older bull doesn't release the reins to the younger bull, and the business doesn't really evolve with times. So to my father's immense credit, when I took the plunge to move out of the corporate world into where I am today, his work ethic is by far one of the highest I've seen. So he spent every minute of every day, didn't matter if it was a Monday to Sunday, teaching me what I needed to know. And it took, I reckon it was 2 years of every day of our lives. And we were living together at that point. I was 25, 26 years old, of teaching me everything he knew about the industry. That was from buying all the way through the process of going direct to farms and retailing, and how to speak to a great, you know, someone of affluence like Brett Kelly, and all the way through the system. And I think once he saw that I was at a stage where I could take the front foot, he had faith in me, which is an amazing feeling for a father to give that to the next generation. And he let me run with it. And of course, I've made mistakes along the way, but 100% learned from them, and we're better off for that. And he's let me make decisions of saying, okay, we are not going to be 100% retailers. We're going to be now 85% in food service wholesale, trying to expand state to state, servicing the ship industry, of which my family are renowned for retail, and now our company is 85% wholesale. So he has literally taught me what he knows, let the reins be, loosened up, pass them on to us. We've got a great management team in place. He still is involved in overseeing the buying, the purchasing, but anything to do with day-to-day operations, he's not involved today. He's not involved in at all. He still is in the most important part of the business, which is the purchasing. Still today, that's what is so important for us. But everything else, as far as bringing on new business, relationship management with our existing clients, he's allowed me to make my mistakes and pass that on. And I think that's out of him being able to feel comfortable that the next generation has got the ability, in addition to bringing on the correct people in managing our company. So I think that those family businesses that aren't able to pass on, that there isn't a sight line, it may be that there isn't the faith in the next generation, or it may be that the older bull doesn't know how to let go. And I think that's really important. And I think that's the catalyst to how we've gotten to where we are today.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, I love your dad. I think he's a really wonderful guy and very inspiring lad. And one of the things I've noticed about him, which, people outside families tend to do, and in our line of work, I really turn up as an independent observer, if you like. But he always loved his sports cars, very low, they shall remain nameless, but very low sports cars. And I remember sitting with him, and he was so animated that he switched over his car to something a little classier and more comfortable, not so low. But it really, and I love my cars, but really reflected this willingness to change. People get so stuck in I'm like this, I do this, I can't do that. And I actually took that and, watched him go from his retail, growing out this wholesale, and he's not 21. And so to me, to see him work with you and to be able to make these major shifts at his age, where most people post 50, they just don't, they don't really change. But the most successful people at keeping their families together, in particular family businesses, do seem to be really open to changing, which I think is a real credit to him and to you. So you get into this business really now, driving, you've got your dad there. I know I've sat in a restaurant with your dad, and his attention to detail around the produce is, I think, a key element to what you've done. And I guess my observation is the standards in life are so important. You go into this business, you've got this guy with very exacting standards, huge work ethic. Are you married now, Julian? Like, how do you sell that to your wife? How do you keep that working when, you don't progress like your dad has and the business had without an extreme level of commitment and very high standards?
Yeah, 100% right. So the expectation today, as far as work-life balance, without question, has changed. From when I grew up to what my mother was used to versus, what I hope to be transcending into. I was a keen soccer player when I was a kid, and I think my father came to half a dozen games. It wasn't out of detriment. It was because he was dedicated to his work. And today you try to say, well, if my son or daughter, for that matter, is incredible at or loves to go horse riding, then I want to try and go there with them. I want to spend that time with them, and I'd love to be able to do that. So I think the big difference is, years ago, a family operated business, you'd work, the three brothers, for example, would be the ones physically stacking the shelves, talking to the customers. In order to get to the next level of work-life balance, and to answer your question, I've got a little daughter that's 9 months and a wife, so married, so I'm living it as we speak. I think that having key people within the business that can take certain roles and responsibilities that allow you to have that time away are paramount. I think that it would not be possible without employing the right people. But with that means a couple of things, Brett. It means they're ambitious people. So let's call it, I've got half a dozen people who are at management level. They are extremely ambitious and could probably go out on their own and do something for themselves. But for me to want to keep them under our umbrella, they need to be, continuously, from not even from a financial point of view, but continuously, improving themselves as people. They want to be teaching younger staff. And then from a financial point of view, year to year, they want to be trying to do better, of course, themselves. So what does that mean? It means that we as a family company need to continually be expanding and finding new opportunities for them so that they are with us for the next 10, 20 years. And my time is spent on absolutely the current operations, but also on what else is there that we can be doing so that those people have got the next, 10 years with us. And I also can have that work-life balance that I desire as well. So
I think you're spot on there, Julian, is that, if I often have young, people say to me, I want to go into business for myself. And I always say to them, well, if you do that, you'll definitely go broke. And if you don't go broke, you certainly won't do as well as if you went into business for other people. And so in reality, when you own a business, it's not your business. It's a business that you have to run for your clients. And you have to run it for your best people. And if you don't focus on creating opportunity for your best people, then there's no reason for them to be with you because you're not thinking about how to make them better off. And ultimately, your business can't have forward momentum. And so, to the degree that you focus on the customers and focus on making your best people better off, then they will grow your business and they will find the next opportunities and they'll tell you the things that, they can see and the opportunities. And I think then, like your dad, you've got to be able to give them the space to actually develop those opportunities, for the customers, for themselves and for your business. And I can tell by what you've said that you understand that. And I think, that's why you can see the business really going forward. It's really interesting, but it is a common thing. One of the reasons that people don't go off by themselves is they'd rather be part of a team that's winning. So the question is, are you prepared to lead the team in a way that everyone can win?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're a great example of achieving all of those things. How many franchises are there now? How many?
So there's 16 offices, there's 20 businesses, there's 52 partners, about 280 people. But and Julian, genuinely, it's about finding good people that want to build a business with you and helping them achieve their goals. And if they do, then we know we'll achieve. There's a great old saying, if you help other people achieve their goals, you'll achieve your goals. You just don't want to get that out of order. And that's what I think the great people that you meet through the business, your clients and suppliers and friends, and they become part of your life if you want them to, and you want to live that type of life, which I personally find very rewarding. So now with a 9-month-old and a wife, I've got a wife and a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Yep.
These are, I think, the biggest challenge the business owners that I deal with struggle with is to get, rather than work-life balance, just get priorities in the right order, I guess, to make time for the things that matter. And that really means making sure you stay healthy and then you can spend time with your partner and your children. How are you finding that? You've now come into the world of an uncontrollable child. They just have their own routine. How's that going for you?
I'm loving it. Fortunately, my wife she's ambitious in her own right. So she's a designer and she takes care of the creative part of Parisi. So what you see from, our trucks, for example, the way that they're branded well, and we get beautiful emails from time to time, people saying, I saw your trucks around the city.
So she's the real talent, the beautiful boxes. So guys, for our listeners, if you get a box of fruit, you get anything from these guys, it's not only produce amazing, but the beautiful sense of Italian quality designs there. So it's your wife that's doing the design, the boxes, the ribbons, the whole lot.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife is taking care of that, and she's got such a focus on the experience of someone opening the package. So down to the material of the ribbon that's been selected, you know, that the inserts of all the boxes, they're all perfectly selected so that they've got Parisi label all over them and custom made. So, you know, not every piece of your business can be a net profit business. Some of them, you know, we put towards a marketing. You know, it's a marketing component of the business, and it's getting the name in the right hands.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the business for us, that's what it's really about. You know, that's the magazine of our business. You know,
and if it's just a cost recovery, it's a nice way to think about it. You know, if it's just a cost recovery exercise, then it's essentially free marketing. And you know, so often there are opportunities within businesses where you can provide a service. You may not be at full margin, but you know, to your comment there, you know, putting your product in the right hands, you know, we strongly believe in a sort of pay it forward mentality that, you know, I never believe a good act done with the right intention is unrewarded. It's just that you don't know where the reward comes back from.
Yeah.
But you know, it always seems to come back. And so we don't get anxious about just doing the right thing by people, and knowing that eventually, you know, the wheel turns and everything seems to move forward strongly.
So coming back to, I agree. So coming back to how's the child and the wife. So fortunately, yeah, Cynthia, my wife, she's you know, understanding that, you know, we're operating a company and we're responsible for, you know, 120 people's lives and their families as well. And I mean that. I take that every day I wake up, I think about the people who work for us, the long-term people that work for us. They are putting confidence in us as business owners, and security, you know, and long-term security for their families. So, you know, we, as a director, as a business owner, you need to take that very seriously, I think. So she, you know, she's very supportive, and she's taking care of the little one. And I tell you that if I knew the pleasures, I know that it's tough with the sleeping hours, the pleasures that a child brings you. I would have had a child 10 years ago. She's, you know, whenever I look at her, she warms my heart, and it's an amazing.
It's really, it's a great comment, Julian. You know, today you go into cafes. I was in one this morning. There's always a bowl out for the puppies to be welcome. But people are less welcoming of children, which is quite silly. And I think parents often talk about the commitment required to raise a child, but not the joy. You know, I had my little one, my 9-year-old in the park this morning because she wanted to go to the park before school. So I said, well, if you get up early, you know, I'll take you to the park. And this beautiful couple of ladies were there, one with their partners with their gorgeous newborns, one on the swing, one crawling through the mud. And, you know, as I'm inclined to do, I went and patted their babies, and I said, oh, that's a beautiful baby, much cuter than any puppy I've seen this morning. And the poor mums were so happy that somebody was kind to them and their baby, because, you know, early on, it's particularly for the girls who birthed this package of love, it's very heavy going. So, yeah, they do bring another dimension to your life, and I think are tremendously rewarding, really tremendously rewarding.
I think you said something really important. So work-life balance is probably the wrong phrase. It is more about aligning your priorities. So what we're starting to do is we're starting to, in the calendar, the same way that I had a meeting planned today with yourself, is my wife and I starting to put things in the diary that week to week we're forced to do. So we do spend quality time together. Like on a Tuesday afternoon, she's organised a personal trainer for us to go. Is that the family diary? I love it, mate. You have to.
You've got it. You've spot on, mate. If you've got priorities like in the business, in your family, you've got to carve the time out, because it's not going to happen any other way.
Yeah. So last night we tried. We've got my wife's actually, she's not Italian. She's from Chile. She's South American background, and her family migrated here when their parents were 32 when they came here. So they are new to Australia. And we tried it was a Colombian restaurant last night, just off of William Street. And mate, just in cuisine, like there's so much beautiful product out there that to eat and try, and venues, people doing amazing things, but we're so lucky here that we can go out and eat and, try potatoes. I'm in produce and I tried the potatoes from Colombia. They're receiving them frozen. We don't have them in Australia. They're incredible. Like this guy last night, he had an octopus with watermelon in a salad. Like you don't get that just in normal Australian cuisine. So you need to get out there and try different things. I feel so lucky to be doing that,
Yeah, like if you can combine, it's a really interesting area, because I've said to people, I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe that, there's a 13th century philosopher that talks about right order, the most important thing followed by the next most important thing. And there's a lot of people I've spoken to that just say that, if there's a hard distinction between your work and your play and your life, your family, but then you're in the wrong work. There has to be some passion for that. And if you can meld, your business in produce with your love of food, and get out to those venues, on a Tuesday night, take Cynthia, take your child and experience those venues. Go early. We used to find we just go early, 6 o'clock dinner, or as early as that open, so that, because the kids aren't good for a long time at that age. And your life is richer when those things come together, rather than trying to falsely keep them apart. So I think it's really interesting. And to your point, unless you carve that time out, it's just not going to happen. And so, one of the things we've seen with schools and all the rest of it, they impose a sort of false structure to your life. You really have to structure your life and then make all the rest of it fit in. Otherwise, you get to a certain age and you've forgotten to live your life, which is, I think, really, really important. So what happens next? When you look forward, I love Michael Hill, and I must get him on the podcast. Michael Hill Jewellers, he wrote this amazing book called Toughen Up. And in there, I'll recommend it to everyone, phenomenal book. But he talks about having a 30-year plan. So, if you don't have a 30-year plan written down, you don't have a plan at all. And the guy's 70-odd now, 75, still got a 30-year plan. Incredible guy. But I read this many years ago. And ever since, I've run a 50-year plan, because you've got to live to 100, right? The question is, when you look out 20 years, 30 years, where do you see, your life and business?
Yeah, good question. So 30 years, I don't have a 30-year plan, but I've got, a shorter term plan and then a longer term, plan. Look, I still see some serious opportunity within what we do from a wholesale point of view, to be growing and expanding and growing in different parts of the business. So labor is a serious component of restaurants' P&L that needs to be addressed. It's continually increasing, and I believe that there's going to be a point in time which people just can't afford to go out and pay for a product, because it will just become too dear. And that's driven by the labor. If labor starts to go up continuously, they've got no choice. So how do we help that to be addressed? And I think the technology that is out today, that is not being used from a food preparation point of view, just from research that I personally have participated in, there is an immense amount of opportunity to be preparing product that takes a few steps out of the pie for a restaurant of the mundane tasks, that can then allow the chefs to be doing all of the beautiful things that they love to do, creative, designing new menus, what seasonality, what's coming in next, and the final stage of cooking. But there's a piece of the puzzle that technology can help us with, and I think that I personally would like to tackle that.
Yeah. It's interesting. Just here in North Sydney, there's a dim sum restaurant out of Hong Kong, and I just popped in the other day for lunch. A big iPad order on the iPad. Out came the food, and so really there was one person plus the chefs, and phenomenal food, great service, happy days. So it does resonate. Well, look, I want to thank Julian for being with us this morning. Julian Parisi, the managing director of Parisi, 65-year-old family business here in Sydney, You'll see their shop in Queen Victoria building. There's a shop. Is it still there? It is still there.
QVB, our lease actually, during the middle of COVID, it expired and we couldn't come to the commercial terms with Vicinity. So that one's not.
Oh, that one's gone. Is there still the one in Barangaroo?
Yeah, correct. So the other
Barangaroo I've seen. I thought I walked past it the other day. I'm sure I had. I think I had a chocolate dipped strawberry. I think that's what I might have had before a meeting. It was a food of champions, and guys, we use Parisi for our corporate gifting. I love to buy a box of fruit and send it to people. So when you cop one of those boxes, it's the best fruit you've ever seen. And and the Parisi business for fruit was recommended to me by Julian and Chris's good friend Nick Chironi, who's also here in Sydney. Great Italian lad and jeweler. So Julian, I really want to thank you for today. I look forward to catching up soon. And as I love to say to our audience, have a great day.
Thanks so much, Fred. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thanks for listening to the Be Better Off Show. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate and review on Apple Podcasts.
Have a great day.